Welcome back to Camp Bucky and the third of my SRV driving tutorials. If you've practiced the previous exercises, then there's nothing for it now except to head out and start putting those skills to the test. Start with a nice boost up from this handy perimeter mound in order to get enough altitude to cross the next bit, tilting down to build some speed. This next section's kind of tricky as it's an uphill gradient. I'll cover more on mountain climbing in another video. The main issue is that you may not get much ground clearance from your bounces, so use plenty of boost to stay above it as best as you can until you're over the peak. Now we can tilt down and start to build some speed. The more you tilt down, the faster your boost acceleration will be, but for starters, don't try too hard. Make sure to level off in time for the next bounce and use boost as required to hit the top of each mound. If the ground you're about to hit isn't horizontal, use roll to match the slope and hit it with both wheels at the same time. Now we're looking ahead, gauging boost in order to clear obstacles or else drop and bounce before we get to them. Bounces will often throw the nose of the SRV upwards. Don't panic, just pitch it back down again. At this point I realise I'm off course and need to steer right. The way to do this is to roll onto your side and use boost to slowly push the SRV across to a new heading. Don't forget to watch your altitude and level off again for bounces, before resuming your course correction. The faster you're travelling, the longer these corrections will need to take effect. Okay, that's better. Watching this back, I can see I'm already really motoring now, and would recommend beginners settle into a level cruise at this point, rather than tilting down and pushing to go ever faster. This landscape is typical of much of the journey between here and Drakhyr Point, so the main thing you should do now is learn to read the terrain ahead of you, pick out good landing spots, and use boost plus small steering adjustments to try and hit them precisely. It won't always work. When you get bashed out of alignment like this, use plenty of boost to gain altitude for the large steering manoeuvre you'll need to make in order to line the SRV back up with your direction of travel again. In the far distance you can see the white peak of the mountain that's just before the midway point of the rally. If you're taking the mountain route, then make a mental note of the heading that you need to be on. See the rock coming up? No, me neither. It happens. You just have to roll with these punches and try to regain level flight as quickly as possible. Note how we've already lost sight of that mountain, hence why it's important to have a mental note of the heading that you'll need to follow. At this point I decide I'm going too fast and execute a mid-air braking manoeuvre by tilting backwards and boosting. It's kind of an advanced manoeuvre because you can't see where you're going or where the ground is, so use with caution. In this case, a bad bounce leaves me at low altitude, which turns out to be a costly mistake, as it's followed by a second impact that I'm pretty lucky to recover from. Why not hone your skills by trying to guess which spot I'm aiming for over the next few bounces? Hopefully you get some sense of why my low altitude here is a major concern. Things are much more relaxed higher up, as you have plenty of time to prepare for the next bounce. Even if you get flipped completely upside down, you'll typically have more than enough time to roll back level again and readjust your heading. At this point, I notice there's an odd blue reticle in the middle of my HUD and check to make sure I have no fire groups set. Nope, weird. It's some kind of display bug and comes and goes a bit randomly. Faffing around in my control panel means I spot this rock too late. My hull's down to 44%, so it's time to demonstrate making a pit stop. I recall my ship and then focus on bringing the SRV to a halt. Apply the handbrake, and if you have the altitude, tilt back and boost to employ that mid-air braking technique. Also, try to avoid big bounces and instead look to feather landings on flat ground where you can skid to a halt. Okay, because the ship typically comes down roughly where we were when we recalled it, we now need to turn around and drive back to meet it. If your hull's really low, be careful. There's nothing worse than blowing up on your way back to the ship, and it happens more often than you might think. I probably recalled my ship too soon here, and I've ended up leaving myself with a time-consuming drive back to it. Okay, now we just need to quickly reboard the ship to get our SRV repaired, and then we'll deploy it again. If you're carrying multiple SRVs and the one you're driving is low on fuel, then you might also consider swapping to a new one. Okay, retarget Drakhyr point, turn off the light, handbrake, dismiss the ship, and off we go again. Okay, that's it for this lesson, Commanders, and most of what I can teach you with these tutorials. The rest is down to lots of practice. I'm going to make one more video covering mountain climbing, so we'll see you back at the foot of the mountain next to Camp Bucky in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching, and drive safe.